Hand to the table.
Everybody,
Do not move it.
I am a meat popsicle.
Yeah, that was it. That was up the wall. We're good.
Where's the popcorn?
We are recording.
Popcorn's in the. We got some popcorn.
I know, right? Well, we didn't have it last time, so I want to make sure that we have it this time.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
I got popcorn.
I mean, I brought it just to make sure that everybody understands that now this time because I
Did
did
you?
the assignment.
I bought those 2 bags.
No, see, the thing is, I have popcorn that I purchased.
How long ago?
It just listen. It's not important. It's irrelevant how long ago this was. It was.
Are you
It's
bringing
been
some
purchased.
stale ass popcorn to this party?
It just needs to be popped, Darren. Okay, it just needs to be popped.
Oh, so he didn't bring popcorn. He brought kernels.
Oh my god. You know what?
So
I'm leaving.
So when the podcast episodes where you bring the kernels kick off,
We'll call you.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
We can start that now. Just name.
Oh, new series. Yeah.
Just name this.
You brought the kernels.
I brought the kernels, but listen, it doesn't matter because you just brought popped kernels. What difference does it make?
No, hold on. We're running with this. You brought the kernels, and it's us shit talking the worst movies.
Ooh.
The complete opposite of this one.
Or shit talking movies that people think are good and we don't.
I always wanted to do that,
Yeah.
like call it a series unpopular opinion or hot take or something like that, and it's where you can do either or. You can either trash talk people high opinion movies, or you can
It's right there, unpopped
celebrate
popular opinions.
Yeah.
Unpopped popular opinions. That
Get
sounds
it?
like a lot.
Well, okay, we could work on it though. But
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
unpopped,
I'm with that part.
unpopular,
It's like you bring the kernel,
kernels.
an unfettered monologue of an unpopped, like just make it the longest title ever.
No, yeah.
Oh, because it is kind of pretentious to be like shitting on things that people that have an unpopular opinion. So like you can just totally take it super far with that.
Unpopped opinion.
But I also like the idea,
Ooh.
the opposite idea of celebrating movies that have really low reviews as well,
Yeah, like universally panned movies that are
Yeah.
actually.
that you enjoy and like why you enjoy them. So, it can take either angle. That's what you bring is I bring this movie, this has really high ratings, I think it sucks. Or this has really low ratings, I think it's great.
But I feel like the former kind of just, or the latter rather, fits into this series.
The I think it's great part, yes. But I think that the point of speaking about it is talking about, or counterpoints to why people think it's bad, maybe. So you're kind of focusing on the way that it's received.
Yeah, I always found it interesting because a lot of times when you read reviews about things that you've like enjoyed and you see like a bad review, because sometimes I'll read bad reviews of a movie that I enjoyed, and it always kind of felt like they were like, "Oh, this part sucked," and it's like, "Well, like that wasn't that the point of that whole part?" Like I felt maybe they missed it, but maybe I'm not trying to pretend that I'm smarter, or whatever. But it feels like they just sort of missed the entire point of.
Sometimes, especially in movies, there's a lot of that suspension of disbelief that has to happen. And there's a lot of movies that I've seen where people just, it breaks for them for whatever reason. And that usually ends up in their review is, I didn't get this movie because of these elements that took me out of the story.
Well, I mean, that could also be a valid criticism. Maybe the movie did a poor job of presenting itself.
Yeah, that's the argument is, where does the responsibility lie? And where does that line shift, whether it's the responsibility of the director and the movie itself to bring the viewer in, and where is it the responsibility of the viewer to suspend things and bring themselves in? So I think that's a common question in storytelling in general.
Yeah, I think it's important for any viewer to go into a film with some level of suspension because it is a movie, right? So there should be some level on the viewer to go in and not expect to be like, well, that's not what I would have done, or that's not how I would react to the situation. It's just, I think it's just understanding like these characters are not you.
For sure, and it's a really
them.
fun question, right? Because it's like, how far down the road do you go of suspension? Like, there's really, really, really bad movies and shows out there, and it's like, well, if it's all on the responsibility of the viewer, then every show should be good. So then, okay, well then, where does it draw back from there?
Are we recording the video?
No.
Because I think that's what we messed up on with Javon and Mike.
I think part of the problem is that when I control it through my watch, when it goes to sleep, it stops whatever it's doing. So I think I just need to run it from there so it stays on there.
Okay.
We'll be back. So, Frank, now that Darren's gone,
Thank God. We can really start the podcast.
this is where the real podcast begins.
Oh? This
Oh,
is
he's
where
back.
the
He's
fun
back.
begins.
Shit. All right,
I
never
lied.
mind. He's back. Shh. Hey,
It is
Darren.
running just fine. What? What
Hey,
happened?
no,
What's
nothing.
been going on since I left?
We're waiting with bated breath.
Is this my
for your
intervention?
Yes.
Go on.
Mike, go ahead.
So today's movie is Chasing Amy. By
oh, no,
Kevin
I
Smith.
meant the intervention.
Yeah.
This is the intervention.
Oh.
I'm sorry, then continue. Yeah, so what are we watching today, Mike?
We are watching Chasing Amy by Kevin Smith. Cue music. Cut that.
Cut that. So Kevin Smith. Now, is this this isn't his first one, right? First like major.
No, it's actually his third.
So like what, Clerks and
Clerks, Mallrats, then Chasing Amy. So what's interesting, right, is that like Clerks comes out and kind of takes the sort of indie world and film world by storm. And then they gave him lots and lots of money to make another movie. And that movie was Mallrats, which was the opposite of
the flop, right?
Clerks. Yeah, flop's a good word, sure. Yeah, I think it may have made its money back. I'm not 100% sure, but it created it was more of a cult film because like obviously after like once DVDs came out, that was kind of when it really started picking up. But they thought he was like one and done. That was it. Like, okay, Clerks was like magic in a bottle, and then Mallrats comes out, and everyone was like, oh, okay. And then so Chasing Amy kind of what brought him back into sort of like the, you know.
And didn't this movie also bring a lot of like what's now big name stars kind of to the limelight too?
Yes. So the movie was 97. So it's funny because we just did Fifth Element not that long ago, or you guys did Fifth Element not that long ago, and that was 97 as well. So I guess good year for movies, right? Yeah. So this came out in 97. So yeah, it's kind of early. I mean, Mallrats, like, so Ben Affleck is a big name that came out of sort of the View Askew universe, if you will, like the Kevin Smith, world, because he came out in Mallrats. But I mean, I know he did like Dazed and Confused before that, which again, I think we're talking about that during Fifth Element.
Yeah.
Wow, we're just coming around.
Oh Jesus!
Just all these movies are just being talked about.
Like we need an original episode right now. Can
Yeah,
you
I'm
please?
so sorry. Okay. Yeah, so Ben Affleck, he kind of, and then the real big break, I think, for him was like Good Will Hunting, him and Matt Damon.
Which I think was a year after. Right?
Yeah, and it was produced actually by Kevin Smith, so he actually helped front some of the cash to get that movie made. Then they won the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay.
But
And
Kevin Smith is a lot like your favorite director.
Wes Anderson.
Yeah, where he used a lot of the same actors and actresses
Right.
in his films.
Same pool of friends.
Yeah, no, exactly. He used a lot of the same people. I mean, hell, he used Brian O'Halloran in like almost every movie after that, and after Clerks. So it's interesting. I mean, bit parts and small roles, but he liked to use a lot of the same players and stuff in like Joey Lauren Adams. Obviously, who's the can't call her the titular character because her name's not Amy in the movie, but she was in Mallrats. Actually, they dated for a while, and then
Jason
Mewes. Yep, that was Jay. He's in every single Kevin Smith movie.
Well, what was
the other Jason, the lead
Jason
actor,
Lee.
Jason Lee. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, Jason Lee. Mallrats was actually Jason Lee's first movie.
Yeah.
He used to be a professional skateboarder. Actually, I shouldn't say it's his first movie. It's his first like major role. He had like some small bits before that, but nothing
I mean,
big.
what has really Jason Lee been doing since like My Name Is Earl? Isn't that the same actor?
Yeah. Huh?
really been
I don't really know. I haven't really followed too much. I mean, he's been in a couple of Kevin Smith's newer films, like the reboot, Chainsaw Bob reboot. I think he's in Clerks 3, whenever that comes out.
Oh, that's right. That finished wrapping
Yeah.
pretty recently.
Super excited about
To
that.
bring it back to your question, I think if anybody got a jump off from Chasing Amy, it might have been Jason Lee.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know,
Absolutely. I mean, he was nominated for a bunch of indie awards and stuff like that for Best Actor and Best Supporting Actor because Ben Affleck's technically the lead. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I know I've mentioned this before, but it's like, 2022 Kevin Smith doesn't get as much credit, obviously, than throughout the 90s and early 2000s Kevin Smith did. But I mean, I think he is sort of the reason that like pop culture in film has become sort of normal. So like talking outside of the plot, talking about things that are happening in the real world, and like, I mean, they have a whole multiple conversations about Star Wars in Clerks that has nothing to do with like, it's just funny, like real life takes on, pop culture. And I think bringing comics and bringing those things into movies, into films, kind of helps ground a lot of things, because it kind of keeps you not like, oh, we're just watching these people's lives and stuff like that, and we're just gonna see kind of the adventure, but it kind of brings you into their world is your world. Like, so Star Wars exists in Clerks, right? But when you watch movies like, any other movies, like, where are we at in the world, right? Like, what sort of world are they in? Are they, because like movies are typically just sort of caricatures or, like made up kind of places, based on things. But Clerks in a way kind of made our world, sort of the real world, sort of become a part of the movie,
And aren't the main characters in this movie like comic book artists?
Yes. Yeah. One is the drawer. He writes and draws the comic, and then the other one's just the he's the tracer, or no, he's the inker. But
are these the characters' names?
No.
Oh,
it's been
Tracer.
so long since I've seen it. It wasn't until we started saying that, like, all that stuff came back to me.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen this movie.
You never seen this movie?
No.
So there's a funny bit where Jason Lee's character, he fills in all the shadows and the lines, and he goes over what Holden, Ben Affleck's character, draws.
I just let it happen.
So-
let it happen. Yeah, let it happen. I say.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll just all right. Guess
Oh,
we'll just
is
watch
that-
it as it happens. Anyway, so either way, but yeah, so they're comic book artists, and it's I know I mentioned this before, and you guys said you had to come with proof. The reason why we have an MCU is because of Kevin Smith. I'm throwing it out there. Bold statement.
Some popcorn right here.
All right.
Right.
He created a tie-in. He based his films off the same things he loved about comics, where there was crossovers and everything sort of tied into each other. He built a universe within his films.
Yeah. What was it was called?
Well, the View
View
Askew was the name of his
Askew.
production company, so they called it the View Askew universe or whatever.
Oh, okay.
But like when you watch Clerks, they go to like a funeral, but then in Mallrats you find out like whose funeral it was, and then you find the characters who are like related to those people. So he creates these, and even in Chasing Amy, like everything starts to tie together. Like Jay and Silent Bob in Clerks and in Mallrats, they're becoming their own comic book stars now in Chasing Amy. The Blunt Man and Chronic comics, like that's kind of, so he's tied in all of his movies and created this universe before that was really a thing, outside of direct sequels, right? So you can't just say like, well, there was a first movie, then there's a second movie, then there's a third movie, so there's those three movies set in the same universe. He did 3 separate films, separate themes, and then tied them together, much like they do in comics. And I think because of that, it kind of made it not mainstream, but kind of made it so that
Acceptable.
right, that you can, this could be done, in a film way without taking away from the movies themselves, right? Because you can watch these films and have 3 completely different experiences, but then knowing that they're sort of tied together in a weird way, like, even subtle things and characters and relationships, it's kind of interesting to see them being tied together. And then that kind of helped sort of, and again, I think just the constant like sort of outpouring of pop culture references in films, and it made it more acceptable for people to be like, it's comics and, nerdom and stuff like that is becoming more popular now. And I think he kind of started that. Mm-hmm. So
I think it's reasonable. I mean, what came really before this in the same kind of design? I mean, there were comic book movies.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Right?
there was,
Even before 97. When did like Blade come out?
oh God, what was Blade, 98?
Oh, so
around that time.
Even that was after
98, 99?
98.
Boom. I mean, there's been definitely like The Crow, I think was a comic, right? Wasn't that like a graphic
yeah.
novel? That was 94, right?
94, 95.
So yeah, there's been comic movies, but like Crow wasn't definitely
94.
Bam, look at that. Look at me just pulling years out of my head. I mean, there's definitely been like, I mean, they had obviously the Incredible Hulk TV show and other films and stuff like that were made.
Yeah, I mean the Batman show. We can trace that back
And
to
Batman
the
89.
60s, 50s, yeah.
Yeah, you know, like.
But none of those still even were the same as, they weren't a universe. They were
No.
just
No, none of they were
movies.
right. They were their own standalone film, and then you know I'm sure there might have been, but I can't really think of a like
that were not sequels.
right
like you were talking about.
right exactly like a film auteur, if you will, has created a tie-in for his movies. You know, recurring characters, people showing up, and just kind of. You know, and he does that a lot in like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, where he revisits all of his characters from the first 3 or 4 movies he did, and then Jay and Silent Bob Reboot was even further, like it's basically just a replay of the exact same movie, you know, and then he branched off and like did a couple of other different things here and there, but I mean like and just the way he writes, like his monologuing and stuff is like just really well done. Like it's really well written.
Well, you can tell just by like the stories. You know, if he's up on a panel or whatever, you know,
Right,
or
yeah.
not stand up, but on stage for whatever reasons, just talking about stuff. Like his storytelling is incredible. Like even off rip about something that he experienced in the past. Like what was the one with Prince when he met Prince?
Oh yeah, that he had to film. He was going to film a documentary about Prince. And then, oh man, I don't remember exactly the story, but he had like hours and days worth of footage, and they were like, "All right, great," and they just like locked up into a vault, and that was the end of it. Like,
right. But I mean, yeah, if anyone listening just kind of looks that one up, like you can just already tell, even if you've never seen any of his movies, that he's a great storyteller. And so, yeah, that translates into his writing.
And he used to do that a lot too. I don't know if he still does anymore, but he used to just travel around and he would just sit there and just sit on a chair on a stage and just talk to people about his movies and just life. And
To like a university or something, like some kind of auditorium.
you know, he even like podcasting. I mean, he was one of the first, like 12 or 13 years ago, to have a podcast, and his whole point was he's like, because he used to do exactly that, like the Evening with Kevin Smith's. He would go out and he would travel and do Q&As and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I remember one Q&A, I think it was like, wasn't it even Kevin Smith? I don't remember, but he had one where one guy asked a question and it was only one question asked, and he spent the entire hour and a half special answering one question. It was the craziest thing. Like,
I do kind of feel bad for those in line waiting to like ask their question.
yeah, I actually I went to one of his evening withs years back. That was a lot of fun.
Did you meet him?
I mean, he was up on stage. I didn't get a chance to actually meet him afterwards or anything like that. But yeah, he's incredibly talented, and he inspired me and my friend Donnie to like write back in college, like to write our own movie, and you know, just kind of we went to write our own TV show, because the way his dialogue was reminded us a lot about how we were and how we talked and how we would get into conversations or arguments about like who would win in a fight, right? Like a Jedi or a Saiyan, or you know, if you had to have somebody's powers from the X-Men, who would you choose and why? And we would have these debates and these arguments about what's better and what's not. I mean, we do it now. Like we do those things today with comics, with like, you know, oh, if Tony Stark was real, would he be like Elon Musk, or would that be like a thing? Mm-hmm. So we have these conversations, but Kevin Smith put that in his movies. Like he put conversations of things he would talk with his friends in his own movie, which made it feel authentic, made it feel more real, and it made you feel, as somebody who had those conversations before you even saw these films, you know, you kind of felt seen. You know what I mean? You kind of felt like, oh, that's me. You know what I mean? That's I'm these people.
And you can feel as though you're there with them.
Right, 100%. Yeah.
It almost reminds me of like Quentin Tarantino. He's known for like his kind of offshoot conversations in movies.
Yeah.
Where just like it has almost nothing to do with the plot, but here it is, and it feels very natural.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's a very, I mean, you know, you talk about Pulp Fiction, Clerks came out in 94, so did Pulp Fiction, and that's actually one of the reasons why he didn't win like the Palme d'Or at Cannes was because he was going up against Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
But the reason why I chose Chasing Amy is because out of all of those earlier films of his, Chasing Amy was my favorite.
Also, Quentin Tarantino's favorite movie in that year, actually.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I did a little research.
Would you look at that?
Look at me hosting a podcast.
So it's my favorite of his because of just the comedy parts of it are just great, like the one-liners, the again the monologuing, but also the emotional scenes, the drama of it is wonderful. Like, not to like spoil anything, but there's a big scene where the main character is professing his love to this girl. And there's a moment where she's like just sort of staring at him and he says everything he needs to say. And this is the part of the movie where like every movie you ever watched, this would be the part where the girl goes, "Oh, I feel the exact same way about you, blah, blah, blah." She gets out of the car and leaves. And that is like the craziest thing, you know what I mean? And then like it's raining, it's the the classic stuff. Mm-hmm. But she gets out of the car and just leaves. He has this emotional outpouring, which was, you want to talk about scene chewing, like Ben Affleck just absolutely crushes. And she says like nothing and just leaves. It's crazy. Like it's just not something you normally see. And then just their relationship and everything else and how it all just kind of plays out, beginning and ends,
It's easily his most dramatic film.
Oh, absolutely. It is. It's just
where it has like a real intention to it. Like, like there's a real intention to it, even though it still has all of the wonderful elements of his style. Dogma might be my favorite production of his, but Chasing Amy is the best story.
Oh, yeah. It's probably one of the best written, directed films he has. And it's what brought him back. It kind of brought him back from the dead. Like he has been and always will be an indie film, much to his, either like, that's a hill he's going to die on, right? So whether you enjoyed films like Yoga Hosers or Tusk or any of those movies he did afterwards, which, they're okay. They're not great, they're fun to watch, and that's kind of about it. But like Red State was just insane.
That was intense.
Oh, man, what a movie that was. We can probably do that one at some point. But Red State, like talk about a departure from things he's done in the past, and it was such a well done, like horror-esque kind of crazy. But he's been an indie filmmaker, and then that's what kind of Chasing Amy is what sort of brought him back out from the grave. Like if Clerks was sort of the thing that put him out on the map, and everyone was like, "Holy crap, what can you do next?" And then Mallrats almost killed his entire career, which is weird to think about now because most people love and adore Mallrats. Like anybody who's a Kevin Smith fan typically are like, "Man, Mallrats is awesome. I love it." But it got its success kind of on video, like after, It was more of like the friends passing it around, which, funny enough, is how I got into Kevin Smith probably in the early 2000s, right on the heels of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back kind of came out. It's like, so 01. And because in 94 I was, 7? You know what I mean? Like, it was actually our sister's boyfriend at the time was like, "Hey, have you ever seen Clerks?" And I was like, it sounded familiar, like it's something I've seen. Like I've seen the poster at Blockbuster, I've seen the video or whatever, and I'm like, no, but I've heard of it. Like it's something that was sort of in my brain, and he let me borrow it, and I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. And then I had a friend of mine who was huge into Kevin Smith, and they started letting me borrow like Mallrats and then Chasing Amy, and then that's kind of how that happened. And then I was like, Chasing Amy was just, especially at the time, like, being a, what was I, like 13, 14-year-old kid, you know what I mean? You're all like emo and emotional, and I'm like, this movie is the drama film of the century, and it still like feels that way. It kind of holds up even now, but yeah.
Have you seen all of Kevin Smith's movies?
Yes.
Oh. Okay.
No, I have every single one. I haven't even seen Cop Out.
It was funny because he's had a very specific like posture around the mic. And then as soon as you asked him that question, he was like a witness in a courtroom.
Deposition.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, just briefly go back to like the screenplay aspect. His writing, apparently, I think he mentioned this on one of his podcasts or his only podcast.
He has a lot of them.
That Chasing Amy was 2 votes away from being nominated for Best Original Screenplay.
Wow, really?
Yeah, according to him. So I don't think there's any proof of it. I don't know how you even figure that out, but you know, he seems like an honest guy.
I don't really know how the Academy works in the back end.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know he's a part of the Academy, so I mean, he might have looked at the vote. I mean, I don't know when he became a member of the Academy, but I know he is now. So I mean, I'm sure he could have gone. Maybe if they had like
He took Will Smith's seat.
no, he was
No,
there.
is that not? Oh, okay.
He was there before, but somebody needs to.
What wasn't he kicked out?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's been kicked out.
but he also.
How many people are in the Academy?
I'm pretty sure
Lots.
he removed himself before he got kicked out.
Yeah, I think he stepped down from the Academy, and then they suspended him from the Oscars for 10 years.
It's kind of a weird thing. It's like he just quit, but you're going to suspend him. You didn't even like kick him out.
Holy shit! I'm sorry. There are nearly 10,000 members.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's lots and lots of members of the.
Wow. I thought it was a little more prestigious than that, but
No.
Yeah, no, I'm one. Pulls out.
I know,
card.
right? Pulls out a golden card.
Yeah, I think you just pay
Academy
dues.
member.
I think it's how it works. In all honesty, I think you just join the Academy and pay. I don't know how that works.
Do they
but-
all vote?
Yeah, so you get what happened. Well, because I've learned mostly through Kevin Smith. He's mentioned a lot of time. They send you screeners
Yeah, I know.
of films that are like
Up for nomination.
not up for nomination, that are eligible, right, to be nominated.
Right.
Yeah.
Eligible for nomination.
Yeah, eligible for nomination.
Nominated to be nominated.
Right, and then they kind of watch them all, and then they basically pick from this list. And that's probably why there's only a certain period of time in the year that a film could be nominated. Right, it has to be released between a certain month, and I don't know exactly. Might be like, I guess, May, June. You know what I mean? Because usually beginning of the year, obviously, it doesn't really count.
It's award season, so all the
Right. So everything that's released in the beginning part of the year is not eligible. So there's only a few months of a film that's been released, and then the production companies have to actually put in for the film to be nominated. So like they have to choose one of the films that they've done and go, okay, I think this could win, and they put it in, and then hope to get it in the rounds, and then they pay money and they try to get people to like see it and vote on it, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's a bit of a political kind of thing, but like that's why a lot of production companies have more, nominated films than others, is because they push a lot. They push and push and push.
It was really there was a period there, probably like 3 or 4 years too, where somebody was a member of the Academy and was getting access to those films that were being pushed, and so you'd see a lot of pirated copies of movies that would have the ticker
Yep.
on them that would say that
I've
this
seen
is-
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all have.
Wait, no, I haven't
No, this
actually.
is-
I've
this
never
is- we are-
illegally purchased or downloaded videos off the internet ever.
We are an open pirate house. Okay.
Okay,
Let's not be
we
afraid.
have done that. I'm sorry, FBI, if you are listening,
All right,
or you are listening, and I am sorry.
notice how Mike is the one admitting it, and I have yet to admit that I have. Actually, I'm going to stop right there.
A bunch of SWAT guys just burst through the glass in the back.
Oh my god,
We got him, boys. Go.
this hasn't even gone live yet.
They're listening now. Yeah, I think that was a pretty good little opener.
Yeah,
I think we can just hop into it then.
let's do it.
Do you have it on Blu-ray?
I do.
I hope so.
Let's do it.
Cool. Chasing Amy, there's a lot of arguing in that movie.
Yeah, no, there
A
is
lot
definitely
of just screaming.
raw emotion.
Yeah.
Very well acted.
Yes.
It made me feel, because again, what we talked about in the beginning was like, right, it's like that sense of, yeah, it's that realness that, like you can relate to the characters in a way. Like I even mentioned while we were watching, when your best friend gets a girlfriend, as simple as that is, like their time is spent now developing that relationship, and you are like the third wheel. You're the one left out. You're the one like, oh man, this sucks. We used to hang out all the time. Now we can't. And there's that jealousy. And then you can kind of feel that maybe Banky was just sort of digging up dirt to break them up,
Oh yeah, that was 100%.
and like that's kind of his whole point was just to bring up finger cuffs, was because he's like, yeah, so this is gonna fuck you up, man, and like, and then haha, and then it all blew up in his face because then the way Holden sort of felt like, oh, I'm gonna fix this by doing the most ridiculous thing you could think of. Like, that is not the solution, and you can kind of see how and why his brain would sort of, or in his mind, like why he would think that would work. You know, you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna be intimate and we're all gonna be together and everything else, and then you're like, no.
On that same subject, you know, because you brought it up in the beginning too, just talking about like unusual responses to your circumstances in life, you know, the argument that they have in the vehicle or him expressing himself in the vehicle, and instead of her just being like, oh, I love you, she just leaves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. I think the same thing. I remember the first time I watched Chasing Amy, when he sits them, like, first of all, he's on the swing and he has this moment of like peace, and you're like, as a watcher of the movie, you're thinking, oh, he knows what to do. He gets it. This is the moment where it all comes together, and he understands himself in the world, and he sits him down and he's like, no, I've got it, guys. And then he says it, and like, as a viewer, you're like, well, what?
Yeah, you're there in that couch.
Like,
you're the third person. You're the one sitting between them,
Yeah.
and you're like, Holden, what are you talking about? And he's just like, we're gonna listen. You have repressed gay like energy, and you need to like express that, Banky, and then it'll be great for us to. And then it's like you, Alyssa, because now I can share in these moments. It's almost like, no, those aren't your moments to share. You know, and you just want to tell him like, no, stop what you're doing right now.
This isn't going to work, is it? Yeah, that's like, I remember thinking that, like, this is like what he's saying. That's not going to fix this, is it?
And it doesn't.
That shouldn't fix this.
I'm really glad they didn't go through with it, because then I feel like the movie would have ruined for me.
Oh, 100%.
Because the entire movie, there's a lot of ignorance of like homosexuality, and it seems at every step that you feel Holden is about to learn and understand, he does something stupid or he says something stupid, right? You know, and I'm glad in the end, like, he didn't win effectively. He lost his best friend of 20 years.
Yep.
He lost the effectively love of his life at the time, you know, and then he like rekindle at the end. So just like, because it seemed like he was it almost to the same conversation that I think they had in the rain outside, like when she left the car, seeing like she's like, oh, my whole life is going to go into an upheaval because I have to change and you don't have to do anything. And that was kind of the case. Like, he didn't change anything.
100%.
Didn't have to at all.
Even the conversation at the end of the film when he's sitting there saying, I need this, I need this. It's like, again, it's that selfish, self-centered, like, and even when like Silent Bob was telling him the whole story, the whole Chasing Amy point, the whole point of Chasing Amy, it's almost like he was like, no, like, he didn't hear it, he didn't listen to it. It's like, you're going to let somebody go because of your own bullshit and your own like hang-ups. And that whole story was like a caution tale of like, you're just gonna spend your whole life chasing Amy, so you go fix it. In his mind, he's like, I'm gonna go fix it by making it about me.
Yeah, I need to be, go up to the
on your level versus just accepting that you're not, and accepting that she loves you for exactly what she says. And she has that whole line where she's just like, I thought I had, the only reason why I lied to you and didn't tell you that I had other male partners in my earlier life was because I saw how happy it made you to think that you were the one, that this was like the first time, because no matter how many times I told you were incredible, it just wasn't doing it. And like, that in itself is kind of crazy to think about too, where it's like the things you do for love, right? The things you do with your partner, you're just kind of like, oh, okay, I can just, I'll kind of hold this information because it makes you feel good. And he was incredibly selfish and self-centered and very like, it's all about me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it was okay for her to do that, though.
No, I mean, yeah, you're right.
I don't think it's worth excusing that. Right, that lie was a pretty big lie, and it was, in a lot of ways, you could argue that it really just continued to facilitate and further that ignorance and foolishness that he carried inside of himself.
She acknowledged that it was a mistake, and that she immediately she's like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. So she's already kind of like coming to terms with her own mistakes, but him, he just seems like he never learns. No. And in the end, like, yeah, he lost his friend, but even that, he didn't really lose because they had that little interaction from across the room. So, like, all right, we're still cool, but we're not really going to talk to each other. Same thing with her. So it's like, really, did he, in fact, even lose? Did he change at all? Was there any character development in Holden? Do you understand what I'm saying,
Yeah, I don't think that's an easy question to answer.
Yeah, no, I don't know, because I mean, we won't know, right? Well, I mean, we probably do, because I'm sure, because like, his character shows up a couple times in other films, but I don't think they really touch on like
Okay.
who, like he's in Silent Bob. I mean, in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and he's also in the reboot. But I don't remember. I know he had a scene, and he had a scene with Joey Lauren Adams as well. So they have like a rekindling moment. I mean, obviously this is like 20 years later, but I mean, in this film, I can see the point where you're like, well, okay, did he actually learn anything in this movie? And I think he did. I think he learned how to express himself in a more healthier way by using the comic and kind of just stepping away from everything and sort of realizing. But you know, again, how much of that has he learned? We won't really know.
I think that's my point, is that Kevin Smith never made an effort in the end to openly express whether he learned, other than, like you said, the last title of the comic, you know, the I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. You know, other than that, I think he leaves it up to the viewer to decide whether they think he learned from that or not.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I think in some ways it's kind of a self-reflection sort of ending, where it's like, you know, is there something to learn, and then you have to decide that for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if it's up to the audience, I personally don't think he learned. He's able to go about his life now, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't really lose, like I said, anyone. Maybe he's not living with his friend anymore, but there's still, again, that like we're still cool, you know, haha.
Yeah, but I think he still lost her, and well, like, I think he lost his best friend, right? Because yeah, there was that moment where he's like, you know, yeah, she's over there, but I don't think that left me thinking, oh, they're gonna hang out, and because like even Alyssa, after she was like, he's like, oh, you know, give me a call, let me know what you think, and then the friend sits down next to her and was like, who was that? And he's like, oh, some guy I used to know, kind of thing. Like that was just a guy I used to know, and then went back to like, all right, what are the plans for tonight? Like, yeah, he doesn't have her, and he's not gonna have his best friend. Like that's the impression I left. Like they were cool, but that friendship is never gonna go back to the way it was. It'll never be the same. Even if they were to like talk every once in a while, whatever, that friendship is that 20 years of friendship is gone.
Mm-hmm. I suppose it's yeah, you know, I agree. You know, he can't go back to that, so he did lose that.
And he lost his comic book. I mean, remember he said he had to self-publish the Chasing Amy one, only did 500 runs. He lost having all of his money, the TV show.
So like the Banky, right? He affected by that too.
Yeah, but he has a booth at a con. It's a little bit of a bigger, you know, you got invited.
Now, is that because that's just what, like, is it because Holden just didn't want to do that? I mean, so the only comic book Holden did or tried to do was something just as a sorry to Alyssa. So maybe he just doesn't want to do that.
I mean, yeah,
that life
fair.
anymore, you know?
It's fair, but I mean, think about it. Yeah, whether it's a choice, I guess he made. I mean, his success was sort of attached to his friend, right? So Banky and him, it was both of them that came up with the comic and everything else. That's why Banky didn't continue the comic. He kind of just went on his own way. And the reason why Holden just made the Chasing Amy comic, if for the same reason, is just they needed each other and they needed to make it. So then you can see that Banky at least is doing well enough to have, you know.
I do like, actually, on the Chasing Amy comic, that there's the visual separation of him and Banksy, because the artwork is not colorized; it's all black and white. So he lost his tracer. He lost his color or whatever.
That's true. Yeah, the comic itself is black and white. Yeah,
but this movie has a lot of those little, you know, like the men and women bathroom. You know, a lot of things that aren't really like part of the plot, but it's there and it exists. I like those little details.
Yeah, the humor, witty.
Oh yeah.
Like, what's a Nubian?
It did come in at some like weird times though, like at the hockey game, for example, and then the guy next to him was like, "Man, even I heard that coming," when they were arguing. But that was such a powerful moment. So
sure.
It's like, okay. It didn't for me personally. Didn't like take me away too much, but I did notice it. It happened a couple times. Kevin Smith, fix your fucking movie.
Yeah, right. What the fuck? What the fuck, man? This movie sucks. You know what? Cancel this podcast now.
Yeah, exactly. Cut that.
We love you. We love you, Kevin Smith. Cut that right there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's yeah. I mean, it's such a crazy. Like, I felt like you can relate and we can live. You've lived through similar situations, whether like through your relationships and through your relationships with your friends. Maybe not as extreme of like losing everything and everybody, but having those feelings and then feeling inadequate and then feeling like aren't on the same level of experiences, and it makes you feel like you're just inadequate. You're not good, and then just like what Kevin Smith, like what Silent Bob said at the end, where, he's like, you feel inadequate and you just feel, and that's the anger. You weren't upset at them. You're angry at yourself and you're,
Mm-hmm. Was Banksy, I'm sorry, I think the artist Banksy.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Was Banksy actually homosexual in any way? I feel like it was touched on, and then it was blatantly said at the end, like, "Bro, you're in love with me," but he didn't quite we didn't really explore it.
I think, I don't know, man. That's a really good question because like it's one of those things where the love you have for your best friend, right? Like that hetero life mate mentality, which is what basically Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes are. Like they're hetero. Like, are they homosexual for each other? No, it's like that weird hetero life mate thing, which I think is what's getting confused. Like, maybe, but it's just that I think it's just more poking that idea of like you're real close to your friends. There's that jealousy that you have when they leave you for somebody else kind of thing, or hell, when they have other friends, you get upset. You're like, there's still that.
I just feel like it would have been actually a really interesting, like almost like a side plot in a way, and another part of maybe Banky's own character development. He's like this very angry, upset guy, and then you learn it's because he's a closeted homosexual. But then in the end, I don't think that was really ever the case. So it's like, why was that just only the humor side of the movie then that we only kind of poked at that?
I think it's the one thing you can look at it in all kinds of ways, but I actually think it's a lot easier to outright say that or to express that. I think it's kind of cooler to me that we have to talk about it, think about it,
right.
Consider it, examine it. And because usually when you examine it, then you examine like aspects of your life or people or whatever the case may be. So like it's another cool element for me is did Holden learn something?
Right. Similar to the exact same question, yeah.
Was Banky gay? Or did he maybe not, was he gay, but did he harbor some sense of, sexual tension with his friend? All those kind of questions. I feel like they're really, really good ones that make the movie better by being unanswered.
But here's another question, right? So is there subconscious homosexuality amongst best friends? Is there some level of like, does that love that you have for your best friend crossing over into a, not full on romantic love, but is there some kind of,
I think there can be that same kind of love when you say I love you to your mother.
Sure.
But I don't know if that's the case with
Sigmund Freud.
I know, right?
Yeah, but I think you're a lot closer to the mark. At least personally, I think you're a lot closer to the mark in what you said earlier, which is that everybody has attention, right? Mm-hmm. And attention is a commodity, and friendship, sexual relationships, whatever the case may be, they're all bidding for attention.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? And so there can be whatever you would call that, relationship jealousies because they all are
vying for your time and attention.
Yeah,
that's very true.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be any kind of romantic.
Yeah, I'd say like subtext, like not full on romance, but like a little. There's got to be, there could be some level of that as far as your care and want for that attention. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I guess they're
very similar.
The thing is if the question is it possible for there to be some latent sexual tension in a lot of relationships, I think the answer is always going to be yes. Yeah. But if your question is there always?
Oh, okay. Well, we'll reframe the always into can there be?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Course.
So could that also be what we're dealing with in this movie where, could this be that case where there's some of that romantic subtext and they're kind of just leaning more into it and the idea that like, or maybe it's just, since it's not necessarily like, oh, okay, just because there's subtext of romanticism from you and your best friend, maybe, and it's not like actionable, right? It's not an actionable subtext, but then they're kind of leaning into that it could, you know what I mean? Like there's a possibility of like, oh, if you love you guys so much, would you marry each other? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I think he kind of leaned into that a little bit, which is where, Hooper kept saying, oh, your friend loves you more, in a way that you which could go either way. Could mean, is Hooper talking about him being fully on gay, or is he just saying the same kind of thing we're saying, that you love him, your best friend loves you in a different way than just your normal friends would? But then Holden, who kind of doesn't necessarily listen to a lot of people and doesn't pick up on the subtext, is thinking, oh, he must be gay. Like, because he's being told by a gay man that he loves you more than you think or more than you know.
Yeah, and it just goes to Holden's blindness in the entire movie.
Right.
You know, he hears things, like, you know, he's listening, but he hears something different, or he interprets it differently. You know?
Oh, yeah.
So maybe to like go to my own question is, was Banky actually, you know, closeted? I don't think that was the case.
No, I don't think so either.
I think it's an interesting end too, as far as Banky's concerned, because I think throughout the film, but I mean, my opinion maybe is just that he seemed to be the dependent one, you know, between that friendship, right? He was the dependent one.
Holden or Banky?
Banky was the dependent one. He needed Holden to kind of keep his life together, and you might have seen it differently.
I mean, I'll respond after.
But he definitely, you know, he was somewhat unhinged, and anger and all these kind of things that came out in various forms. And then when they end, he seemed much more centered, and like he went from being the inker that always got pissed every time someone said something, even though he was a co-creator of the comic. Like, he had plenty of reasons to be happy with his you know, intellectual property. He wasn't, and he just got mad about the fact that people called him a tracer. And in the end, he ended up making his own comic by himself. Was very successful.
I feel like he had the biggest character arc.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%.
He went from dependent to independent, and I feel like that there's some of this shows that in the very beginning, when he's getting upset about being called the tracer, oh, you're just taking what he wrote already did, you know, the artist, and then trace over it. I think that showed that he always had to, whether he needed to or not, he was always second place. He was always second place to Holden. In that, whether,
right.
like I said, whether that was subconscious or just maybe it was Holden kind of taking control over things.
Holden was holding him back.
Moving on.
Also, to bring things back to full circle for my first podcast of Alien, would you say that Banky was the Jonesy of this movie?
Where he was centered around him.
But not centered around him?
Yes, I agree.
The main character was the cat in Alien.
I think, yes.
And it's
interesting. That's my headcanon now.
It's also interesting too that, right, like, it sure seemed like Banky was the toxic one,
right,
for the entirety of the movie, right? Like, for the first half at least, he seemed to be the toxic one in all the circumstances that they put him in, like spiteful, you know, mean, angry, and then he ended as like letting everyone go and just creating his own world, and like, you know, and meanwhile Holden kind of became who he became. I don't know how Kevin Smith thinks of Holden. I'd be curious to know.
Let's bring him on the podcast.
Okay. Oh, he's right here.
Oh my god. I can't do voices.
Oh, God. That would be. Oh, there's another It's Always Sunny callback
with Steven Spielberg.
Steven Spielberg.
Always.
Hey guys, Steven Spielberg. Thank you for having me. That is.
I'll tag him on the post. Maybe get a response from him. Who knows?
Maybe. Who knows?
I think we got enough followers and users.
We're 5 stars.
Yeah.
We're 5 stars on Spotify.
I think we're like
4.9.
4.9. Yeah.
Son of that one person with that fucking 4.
Fucking asshole.
I like to get it stricken from the record.
Probably the person from Norway that's listening.
Shout out to Norway, our brother, sister, they, them, however you. Welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. Come back. Please give 5 stars.
Yes, and please change your rating.
Yeah, if you can, show some love. I want to go back to real quick to like the. I already forgot it again, but the universe.
Right. Yep.
Was this always planned by Kevin Smith?
Yeah.
Okay.
He, from what I understand, from the many things he said, because obviously you have many hours of him talking about stuff all the time. I think, like, if I remember correctly, like that was always kind of the thing when he made Clerks, and then he knew, okay, I can make a career out of it. He already knew that he was gonna, much like his love for comics, he was gonna tie in characters and themes and people and events. And so
this was. You're saying this was after Clerks?
So this was
or this was even before Clerks. He knew he wanted to do this.
I knew he always wanted to he knew he always wanted to make a movie, right? After he saw Slackers was like his inspiration, because he realized, oh, I can do that. It didn't seem like it needed a ton of like talent. Nothing against like Richard Linklater, but when you're shooting like Clerks didn't really take much. It's black and white. It's if you look at like a lot of his films, except for Red State, where he kind of went off a little bit on, everything's framed. He shoots two people talking, and that's what he does. So I've always kind of said that like Kevin Smith's a much better writer than he is a director, because what he's directing is just sort of, or I shouldn't say directing because I hate the thing. Sorry.
Fuck this podcast.
Fuck the mic. Like it's he doesn't do the big, scenes. He's not tracking a bunch of crazy, movement or different angles and different cuts. It's mostly just a single camera set up right here in front, tripod, and like frame you guys in the center and just have you two people talking. He does some multicam and cuts back and forth on the edits and stuff, but for the most part, it's just filming people having conversations. And so that's why his writing has always been more prolific, But I think his desire to make movies, I think he just got the first movie made, and then I think it was after Clerks is where he kind of was like, I'd like to tie things in, much like his love for comics.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I think I obviously have no idea if this is true or not, but it sure seems like it's probably just sort of built into him. Like his media consumption, just and the love that he had for comics, just it'd be cool if I could do this. And then he got the opportunity to do this. And then he just, and then in the end, it ended up being this big universe. And he can look back and say, yeah, I guess I always kind of did intend to do this. But in the moment, he was probably just like having these ideas and just going, it'd be cool if I should bring this character in. I could do that, and he just kept having these ideas and writing, and it just evolved into this big universe.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, they did a lot in this movie. They do a ton of callbacks to Clerks, Mallrats, characters.
Pointed them out.
Yeah, every time it happened, I'm like, that's like the whole having sex with a dead man at the quick stop. Is directly from Clerks, and I think you mentioned how Alyssa Jones's sister is in Clerks, right?
I think that was, yes, and that was in reference to, I think, being videotaped, having sex, that comment.
Okay.
I think that was the sister in Clerks.
Right.
That was from I pulled that from the trivia, not because I remember it from the movie. It's been a very long, I think I've only seen Clerks and Clerks Suits once each.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Mallrats, actually another one I don't think I've ever seen completely. I can visualize moments, but I don't remember. Maybe we should have just a whole series on
just Kevin Smith. Yeah, we should.
Kevin Smith, if you're listening, okay, we love you.
We do.
Please come on. Please come on.
Please get my invite.
Yeah, please.
I'll be standing outside your door,
Holding up
your
a
house
sign.
with a sign.
A QR code to my podcast.
Buddy Jesus in one hand.
Oh my God! Yeah, Buddy Christ.
Buddy Christ.
That's dude. That whole concept is so hilarious. Where it's like the Jesus on a cross is too. It's too like dark and sinister. We need to be more inviting. So they unveil Buddy Christ. And he's just like just pointing thumbs up.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. I love it. I love everything about it. I like the whole part where he's like, I grew up Catholic, for Christ's sake.
There was a lot of references to being Catholic in this movie.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of God references too. Like even in the dart scene between the two bathroom doors, like on the fifth day, God made beer.
On the eighth day, yeah.
On the eighth day,
God made
yeah.
beer, yeah. Oh yeah, no, he's he ties in a lot of, Dogma for that entire movie is based,
Yeah.
But yeah, he kind of pokes fun at that conservativeness, that growing up Catholic. It's like no, we can't have premarital sex, and it's all about love and marriage and the taboo lifestyles and things like that. So it's interesting.
Seeing the Catholic girls across the street, whatever,
Oh God,
and the commenting on that. Like, there's a lot, but it didn't go too in depth into that lifestyle. It was just made known a lot that the characters went to like Catholic sex.
I think it's probably just happened a lot in like conversations with his family or whatever, the people he was around growing up. How often it would just be like, well, this can't possibly be true because he was a Catholic boy or whatever. Like
Right.
like there was just I think it's not always hypocrisy. A lot of it I think is just familiarity. But there was definitely some other moments where it was like you could tell he was implying that there was a pretty hypocritical statement to make. Like just because you're Catholic, these plenty of things can happen.
right? Yeah,
Yeah, and like what I my point is like it wasn't ham-fisted.
No.
It was a lot looking back, but it wasn't like a religious message that
No.
Kevin Smith was trying to push out, which I appreciate. It was just very much part of the conversation that
Yeah, it kind of I mean, it grounds the film. It grounds it into people talk about those kinds of things. People mention it, their upbringing and their life, and religion comes up.
Even Dogma. I mean, the entire movie.
I mean, it has a poop monster in it, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, it's themed about Catholicism and God, but I don't ever find it wildly disrespectful either. Even though like everything about it sort of should be.
Right. I mean, it's called Dogma.
Yeah. I mean, that movie obviously is the focus is that, but anyway. So, I mean, I'm assuming this is your number one Smith film.
Yeah, it is my number one. Yeah, for sure.
Kev is what I call him.
Kev, my boy, Kev.
What's up, dude?
If you're listening, please
Hit me up.
No, it's definitely my number one. Then Clerks would be number two. I mean, I guess if I'm ranking all of them.
Yeah.
After that, like, I would probably do Clerks 2, and then Mallrats. And then everything else kind of falls in. I liked Red State, so I probably put Red State up after Mallrats.
Damn, Dogma's that far down the list, huh?
It's tough, man, because I'm trying to think of all of his movies, too, because Dogma's up there. Dogma should be, well, okay, I can probably stick Dogma. Did I like Dogma more than Clerks 2? Clerks 2 was hilarious. No, okay, so I'm going to have to put it after Clerks 2 is Dogma, then Mallrats. I think I like Dogma more than Mallrats. Then Red State. But then did I really like Red? I don't know. Anyway.
I mean, I guess it is kind of tough. Cut that. It is kind of tough, too, that a lot of his movies are, somewhat similar themed, but movies like Dogma, like Red State especially, they're kind of way off to the other side of, whatever spectrum.
Yeah,
so
like
it's kind of
Tusk.
hard to... Tusk, yeah, is another one, so it's like hard to rank them all together. Like for me, like my favorite director is Wes Anderson, but all his movies are
Right.
the same kind of style.
But what's nice about that, though, is like what I like about Wes Anderson is there's not many directors that I can show you an image, like a frame from a movie, and you would be like Wes Anderson.
Without knowing the frame,
Like you
the
just
movie.
like with just picking a random frame from a random movie of his, you almost 100% can just point out the fact that like that's
Yeah.
Wes Anderson. You know,
I
like there's not many. No, I mean I can't really think of many directors that have that just like really specific and succinct style.
single frame, yeah. I don't think
Yeah,
so.
I mean his use of color is it's just you can just see it. And you're like, oh yeah, that's him.
Well,
That's
the symmetry
That's boy
of
Anderson.
everything,
Wes,
too.
if you're listening to this,
If you're listening, hey, Wesy, what's up?
Wesley, my boy,
What's up, buddy?
Mr. Anderson,
Mr. A.
Mr. A. Just come on our podcast. We have chairs.
Yeah,
And
they're
popcorn.
They're off to the side. Yeah, no kernels.
No, they're
Not
popped.
for your movies. Yeah, they're
These
popped.
are popped. Pop kernels. We should just change the show to pop kernels and unpopped kernels. And pop kernels are for movies you like, and unpopped kernels is for ones you don't. Just like we talked about in the beginning. But that's it.
You
Just
heard it
pop
here.
kernels.
We're gonna erase all the other episodes.
Yeah, we're deleting all
published.
of them except for Alien episode 2. That can stay. Everything else could just we can just get rid of everything else.
Nice
It's
little plug there. Episode 2.
Episode 2. If you enjoyed this episode, which is I've also noticed.
Yeah, it was kind of like Attack of the Clones.
I'm not feeding. I'm not feeding into that. I'm not feeding into that. Continue on, Mike.
I don't know where to go now. God, what was I going to say? I don't even remember anymore.
See, great. You bring up Star Wars and you ruined it.
That's it. Yeah, ruined it.
Nailed it.
George Lucas.
Georgie.
Georgie, my boy, if you're listening to this,
Listen to this.
give me a cut of that $4 bill. That you got, you know what I mean? I need it. No, I've noticed that like the two movies that I've chosen are all like they're like serious movies, But so is like my top 5. So.
You gotta. That's the series, right?
My top 5
What's your
are all
favorite
pretty
movie?
much dramatic.
I think if we're gonna have you back on, we need to break it up and do
Yeah.
my movie.
I'm down
Now that's gonna be a tough one
because I've seen a
movies.
lot of movies.
No, you know what I need to do? We need to get Shannon to pick the movie because she knows some fucking rando ass movies.
Okay, cool.
Cat Ballou, never heard
Sounds
of
like
it.
a cat.
Nope. It's a 1965 Western comedy with Jane Fonda.
Yeah, see, so like when I hear the name Cat Ballou, right, it just sounds like some kind of jazz singer from the 1920s.
Oh, so yeah, you would have.
And like a trumpeter, like, you know, like, and, you know, it's just that, you know, like Walk Hard, but it's all like, you know, Cat Ballou. He's a, I still, even though you just told me it's a Western with Jane Fonda, it's not though.
Not in your head. It's still not. It's still, I'm wrong.
It's about a trumpet jazz player.
No, we'll do something like that.
Yeah, I'm down. Let's you know, a little more levity, right? Because we're talking about some themes here, you know, Alien and you know, Chasing Amy. Even though it's Chasing Amy's kind of a comedy, but
It's labeled as such, and there were comedic moments enough where it wasn't just kind of like.
But it's a heavy movie though. It deals a lot with, you know, some good emotional scenes.
Absolutely.
Especially, you know, that car scene. The whole I don't need a picture of birds bought at a diner to remind me of. Gets me every time.
Remember you. Yeah.
Gets me every time.
Yeah. Scale 1 to 10.
8.17.
Oh, we're doing a little barstool.
Always, bro. You know.
With a one slice review.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
One bite. Everyone knows the rules. As he continues to devour the entire.
It takes multiple bites.
I love it. Yeah, I would say 8.17.
8.17.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good number.
It's a number. I don't know what
That is. All numbers are good.
I think it's more specific than Portnoy.
Maybe.
The one star,
Maybe.
or one slice. All right,
Dave, if you're listening,
Dave.
shout out, bro. Boy,
buddy.
What's going on, my man?
I'm plugging all these other movies, these other
Listen,
YouTube
bro,
series.
we're
Come on, guys.
we're gonna be huge, and then they're gonna see
We got to cast a wide net.
and catch
Someone's
as
gotta
many little
respond.
fish as possible, or big fish.
Someone's got to respond. Oh, I'm going for the big fish.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
Sigourney Weaver, if you're out there, we did a podcast already.
Well, I think we're good.
I think that's
That was a pretty good.
so. Thank you for coming on to a frank discussion, and this has been your guest, Mike. And till the next one.
Cheers.
Was that good?
Yeah, that's good. That's
Yeah?
good.
All right.
I let you do it. I don't want to interrupt.
It's my show
And
now.
cut.